Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'd like to start by stating the obvious. The roof is on fire. I don't say this to be cute or funny. I'm serious. Our political system has always struggled to contain extremism and anti-democratic forces, but this is different. In the words of one of Trump's billionaire backers and tech bros, the country now needs an FDR in reverse. This is all you have to know. But instead of attacking any one institution or program, Trump and Musk aim to dismantle the foundational blocks of modern America. The goal? To exploit the entire system for private gain and to destroy what little remains of public accountability. If he succeeds, this would be a complete reversal of the American project, an FDR in reverse. Trump's assault is also a daily affront to human dignity and decency. This is a test of our national character, and as of today, we're failing miserably. While Republicans in Congress go along, as you might expect, many Democrats prefer to keep their heads down, to wait for Trump to punch himself out, as they say. But everyday Americans don't have this luxury. Anti-state extremists now hold the reins of power in Washington. This is the direct result of constant backpedaling and capitulations by our political establishment and a political system completely controlled by big money. These are not normal times. But the good news is, and there is good news, Trump exposes everything and everyone. It's all out in the open now. There'll be no denying in the future. So I'd like to thank Trump, because Trump reminds us of the importance of grassroots organizing. This is the lesson of Martin Luther King, a lesson America lost sight of long, long ago. The power to resist and the power to reform are never top-down. Real change only occurs if grassroots organizers exert strong, relentless external pressure. Trump is our reminder. The question is how and where to begin, and this is why we're here today, to jumpstart this process now. But before we do, let's do a little thought experiment. Imagine an America in which Congress has no power, the courts validate crime, major social programs are destroyed, international commitments are torn up, public education drained of resources, our minds colonized by lies, disinformation, and junk, scientific research ignored, voting rights suppressed, an America in which the weak, the vulnerable, and the elderly have no protections. And finally, imagine an America in which oligarchs and the uber-rich set policy. This is the path we're on now, and it's the road to ruin. This is the future we cannot accept. I'd like to end on a positive note. I believe that America has more untapped potential than any country in the world. The lunatics and charlatans in power today know this too, and they want to corner the market for themselves. For them, everything is not enough. But no oligarch owns America. America belongs to all of us. We have to start acting like we own the place, because we do. Let's get started now.
Okay, and now I'm going to turn it over to Hagir. Hagir, Elsheikh. I got it close?
You did.
Close?
You did.
I practiced 3 times, so
You did.
it's all yours.
Hi everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm going to read because 5 minutes is not enough to talk about everything we're going through. But since John brought a very important point, I would like to do a little game. It wasn't planned, but I've seen this before. I lived this before. I am a torture survivor from Sudan, and I came here. Pennsylvania is my home. The United States is my home, and that's the only home I know. So I will be damned if I can sit down and let the history play. Thank you. When we talk education, I'm big in education because when you keep the mass unaware, when you try to keep people in the dark and take away all the information that we learned throughout the history, we do to repeat the history, right? So I'm going to say some things that I lived in Sudan during al-Bashir dictatorship, 30-year dictatorship. He came by a coup. And when you hear anything that you can say check to from what is happening right now that I lived in the 1989, just say check. Let's just do this quick and then I will read. All right, so overthrown democracy by a coup, right? The first day al-Bashir came to power in Sudan, he got rid of everyone that opposed him. Fired the people who had actual knowledge of the job and hired loyalists. They dismantled our Department of Education and every other education, right? After he took over, got loyalists around him, then he starts silencing anyone opposed and labeling them as terrorists. And anyone that mentioned al-Bashir or his regime were thrown in jail. I was tortured. I was hung from a tree. My head was bashed open. I was only 15 years old. This is not Hagir's story today, right? But those are the things that we heard. As a woman lived in Sudan, I wanted to fight for my rights because I've seen this before. And speaking out, it became arrest. Then the arrest became torture, rape, murder, enforced disappearance. And I'm not trying to scare anybody because this is not a horror movie. This is the life we're living right now. And honestly, I lived it, escaped it, survived it. I almost died on my way to a refugee camp. And I came here, and now I see the country that we all love is going down to the 1989 in Sudan. So, anyway, everything was checked, right? So we are facing a coup and a dictatorship, and if we don't do anything, then we are looking for 30 years of this. Today I'm going to talk about education, and this is a pivotal moment in the trajectory of the United States. And the Trump administration and the Project 2025, which many people don't know how bad this is. We are witnessing profound changes that could fundamentally reshape our educational system. These changes could affect every classroom, every teacher, and every student across the nation. And here in Pennsylvania, the impact will be more profound, but the same as every state. So it is essential for us that we understand the changes that are happening to our educational system, recognize the deep impact, and advocate for the preservation of equitable education. So the Trump administration has initiated significant changes to the Department of Education. Many of you know that it includes substantial staff reduction and a push to dismantle the Department of Education. This all happened with an executive order and signed directly to start the dismantling process. So it is going to happen, it's just a matter of when it will happen. And this will reduce the federal oversight. So basically they try to spin it when you talk to somebody who doesn't know what does this mean or it doesn't affect them directly. It is spun as the state is going to have more power. But then, you're like, oh yeah, we're going to have more power. But what are we going to do with this power if we don't have anything to cover it with? So losing the federal money that is coming, pushing to privatize many aspects of educational funding. This is going to hurt the marginalized communities. It's going to hurt all of us basically, because the 1% of the millionaires are not here. eliminate the debt forgiveness. So anyone that is working in public service or education, and they have the chance to have their debt forgive their student loans, this is going to go away. It increased the financial burden on students and potentially limit access to higher education for many. So those changes are going to affect everyone, but especially not just minority and low income, but especially that my son is on the spectrum. So he's going to be affected. Maybe I'm financially stable and I can provide for him, but it is not about me and him alone, right? This is about every child that is going to be affected. And this will jeopardize the structure that we built, or many people before us built. Title I funding, and I know most of you will know what Title I funding is, but I will just say it supports the schools in low-income areas, and it also, the Title I funding is facing cuts. So when that is cut, then now your ability to get good education is going to be based on your income and your zip code, basically. Redefining civil rights protection. Like, you probably heard that not just rolling back the civil rights, but now segregation is okay, it's not illegal. You, me, we might not do it, but somebody who wants to do this, they will be able to do it. They will be able to discriminate against students based on their belief, their color, or their economic status. So Project 2025 advocates for restriction on what can be taught in school also. When you keep people in the dark, you remove the history. So the young generation are not going to learn about slavery. They're not going to learn about the civil rights. They're not going to learn about anybody that fought to get us the right, women's rights, not just the Roe v. Wade, but even our voting rights. All this is going to disappear, so the students are going to just read and learn what they want them to read. Controlling the media is part of it, but I'm going to just stay with education. This is basically, like I said, it's the same as what we live. It's the same as what I live in Sudan. And if we allow this, then our children are not going to have the education that they need. They're not going to have the knowledge. And when you have people uneducated, it is a lot easier to control them. And you can basically shape them the way you want to. And that's the goal, and that's how dictatorship works and tyranny in all of, like if you go through history, and that's what they're trying to do, to delete history. Because if you go through history, you will see how dictators succeed. Am I over my 5 minutes? But anyways, I don't think 5 minutes is enough, but we need to fight, and even if this went through and changes. A lot of people say, okay, this is 40 years. No. If he changed the voting and if he changed, he's already calling himself a king. So if he becomes a king, we're looking for 30 years. So no change is going to happen. It is on us to educate our neighbors, to talk to people, and to try to preserve the history books, preserve books that they censor, they banned, and all of that. So I think this is my time, and we can continue talking and listening to everyone here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hagir. Fabulous. And absolutely, 5 minutes is not nearly long enough to talk about education.
Yeah.
But it's a good start. And so she just highlighted, remember what I want you to do, and I'm already doing it up here, start writing some things down on your Post-it notes. I just heard about 10 or 12 or 15 huge threats to public education. So please jot some of those down. Don't put them up there yet, because we don't want to disrupt the speakers that are coming up. But once the speakers are done, we're going to take a working break and give you the opportunity to do that, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, here's the guy that's hosting us today. Tom is somewhere in here. What's that there? Tom is right over here on my right shoulder. So, Tom's going to talk about attack on unions, unions with the need for democracy. I have a list of introductions for everybody, but I'm not going to do it.
Thank you everybody for coming out today. Really appreciate everybody that showed up. Got a packed house here. It's really fantastic to see. My name is Henchey. I'm the business manager for Local 229. Thank you everybody for coming out today. Really appreciate everybody that showed up. Got a packed house here. It's really fantastic to see. My name is Henchey. I'm the business manager for Local 229. Sorry. Everybody good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. I started here in 2003. My dad was an electrician in this local as well. He's also a business manager for this local from 1999 to 2002. So I kind of followed in my dad's footsteps in that aspect. Next week, on the 30th, this local union will be 107 years old. We have longevity in this area. We've come a long way from where we were, just being in downtown York, years ago, and eventually finally got a building over by Jackie B's. I think you are familiar with that's at. Really good food and cheap beer. So we moved to this place in 2012. It was a sewing factory, and we recently converted into this Union Hall of mainly training center. That's the thing that we look at to notice that most important to us is that we put the best qualified electricians out to this area we have within Adams County. So as far as unions and Trump, they don't go well together. He's never ever had a good relationship with unions, and he's used them in the past for casinos. He's had a bad reputation with us. He has commonly underpaid the contractors when they did a job for him at his casinos or any other resort or whatever he had. It's well known that he cheats people out of money. He hates paying overtime. He's made that comment many times. What we do in unions is we are basically a democracy at the workplace. Just ask the question, how many people in this room have ever worked in a union? Okay, it's good. It's not that you hear. Okay, good, wonderful. York has been a pretty center hub for unions over the years. In fact, when I went to high school here at Northeastern, you get out of VOTEC and you take a test, and you get a chance to go into Campbell Chain or Harley Davidson, one of those great paying jobs that had great paying benefits because they had a contract and they had a CBA, and that's a basically bonding agreement that we have between the contractors and us. Here in Local 59, we have roughly 400 people that we represent overall, 320 electricians in this local. We have voice edit video. We represent 60 in Littlestown that Signify, that manufacture light fixtures for streets and parks and things like that. So we have manufacturing, and we also have the 4 electricians in York City, which we represent as well. So I just wanted to go back a year ago, almost to the day. I got the honor to be invited down to the White House by the Biden administration, and that was an amazing day for me. All the business managers from Pennsylvania, IBEW, got invited down, and we went down and met with the cabinet for 4 hours. Jennifer Granholm, from the Secretary of Department of Energy, was like an hour long for the first part of it, but we got another 3 hours with the rest of his cabinet. It was amazing. Just the fact that we were invited down, and that speaks volumes to what President Biden meant to the IBEW. And then, of all things, we got invited back to the White House that night to go bowling in the White House. We got the White House out with cases of beer at the Secret Service, and we were going in and we were going bowling. I mean, it was epic. But in contrast to what we have now with Donald Trump, they're trying to tear down every aspect of any real standing that you have in the workplace. They want to deprive you of all those things. When you look at what unions have done throughout the course of time, we've gotten 40-hour work weeks, time and a half, double time, the health care, vacations, the weekend. And those things we fought for, we fight. And that's what we're here for today. We're here to gather, to inform, to organize, and then put the work and go out and start fighting. Because the only way we're going to retain what we have here in this country as a whole is by fighting back. They don't have the power. We have the power. And we have to give them that power. If we don't give them that power, it's not going to happen. So I really, again, appreciate everybody coming out here today. All you guys and girls that are here. appreciate everything that you're doing, and I want you to contact your legislators, push the pressure points, create action. When you look at what's happened already with all the firings and things that's happened in the federal government, the only reason why it has gotten stalled because of pushback. And that's why we're here today. So I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I appreciate all you do.
So now, we have Representative Justin Fleming, who I'm sure all of you know is in his second term. That's right, let's hear it for Justin Fleming. Our Governor John Shapiro, and I'll turn it over to Justin.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks to all the organizers. This is incredible, and I usually keep Sundays reserved at home, and unfortunately I have to go after this, after I speak here, but they got my weak spot. They asked Mrs. Fire to invite me here today. She's my fourth grade teacher, and I cannot acknowledge her real name. She will always be Mrs. Fire, but all kidding aside, it is an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you to the organizers. You guys have done an amazing job of keeping in contact with us, and I'm so heartened to see so many in this room. Tom, thank you for your words. Thank you for being such a wonderful host. So, Catherine gave me some really good advice, which is start with the positive. And I'm a generally positive person. That's why I hate to see what's going on. So the positives are, we have, in the General Assembly, we have invested in people. We have invested in our kids. $1.1 billion in new education funding last year. We expanded the property tax rent rebate for our seniors, both expanding the awards and the income eligibility, so more people are getting money back in their pockets. We expanded the child and dependent care tax credit, so more working families are getting money put in their pockets. So we are doing some good things in the Pennsylvania General Assembly, and I will say, immediately when the Trump administration got in, they started freezing federal funding, and our Governor Josh Shapiro said, hell no. And they sued the Trump administration, and they got that frozen funding back on. Literally. So I'm on the Appropriations Committee, and we had this conversation with our cabinet secretaries. Literally, the folks in the different departments who are charged with paying our bills and making payments to people could not access the system. And that's how we knew something was wrong. Governor Shapiro wasted no time in suing them. They admitted it was a mistake, but that's bullshit. We know it was. They're doing this on purpose, and they're doing it intentionally, and we can't stand for it, and that's why we're all here to fight. So I know I only have a few minutes, but I'm here to talk about cuts to Medicaid. And as you see, cuts to Medicaid hurt children and the most vulnerable Pennsylvanians we have. Just a quick primer. Medicaid is a cost-shared system by the federal government and the states. The states administer Medicaid, but we get a lot of federal funding from it in order to run the program. So what they are planning to do in budget reconciliation is a process they can use once per term to pass a budget with only a simple majority in the House and in the Senate. That's important because most things in the Senate need 60 votes, but under reconciliation you only need 51 votes. Okay, that's important, and they have the votes to do it. The Republicans in the House and the Senate have the votes to pass a budget with reconciliation. And the framework of the reconciliation budget sent over by the House called for pooling the Medicaid funds into a block grant program, making cuts right off the top and just giving that pile of money to states. And basically what they want to do is just wipe their hands with any responsibility. Federal government doesn't want to be responsible for any of this. And they just want to give all the responsibility to the states, also with a big funding cut. We can't let that happen. So here's what we do, and I know we're going to develop action plans later. We have time on our side, fortunately. Call your congressperson. Call your member of Congress. Email your senators, both Senator Fetterman and Senator McCormick. Tell them there is no way in hell you are going to stand for cuts to Medicaid. And here's why it's particularly important. Most people don't know this. I was fortunate to be in this world for a while. I was a mental health and child advocate before I joined the General Assembly. Half of all Medicaid recipients are children. That's right. Half of all Medicaid recipients are children who have no way to make a living for themselves. They're stuck in their own circumstance. So who does this hurt? If we cut Medicaid, all we're doing is hurting kids and our most vulnerable. So that's step one of their diabolical plan. Step two is to take the massive success that has been Medicaid expansion and cut that reimbursement rate. We have 300,000 more Pennsylvanians who receive health care because of Medicaid expansion. Because of Obamacare, because of Medicaid expansion, that was a huge win for people in Pennsylvania. The federal reimbursement rate on that expansion population is 90%. They want to cut that down to 60% or less from some of the reports that are out there. Folks, I'm telling you this, like I said, we just went through appropriations hearings. Yes, we have money in our rainy day fund. We have money on our balance sheet. We do not have enough money in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to make up for these cuts. The bottom line is, if this goes through, people will be hurt. People will not have access to health care. And I'll be damned if I stand here and watch that happen without doing anything about it. So, the Pennsylvania General Assembly, we're going to fight. Okay? We're going to fight to do whatever we can, fight back against this federal government, fight back against the Trump administration, and we need all your help and we need your support too. So, if you think Medicaid is worth fighting for, show me a round of applause. Give me a round of applause. If you think America's worth fighting for, get on your feet. We're going to do this and we're going to do it together. Thank you very much.
As I am, and he's going to tell us about threats to veterans of all stripes, and that veterans deserve better. Will Lewis.
I would say appropriate one. So I've had a whole thing, and we'll get to that, but let's talk about the VA. What is the VA? The VA is, the short story is they provide like disability compensation and then health insurance to veterans, right? Not all veterans, there's requirements, but that's the short and skinny of it. So the VA saves lives, they save veterans. They don't do a great job at it. I think it's like 24 veterans kill themselves every day. It's better than nothing. It saved my life. I was a hot fucking mess when I got out of the Army. That shit crazy. Like, I was bad. And it took probably about 10 years to really get myself sorted out and functional. And, I wasn't, like, always bad. I went through, like, waves of good and bad. I was able to get jobs, and then, I'd go through my shit, and I'd lose them, and it helped me. And I'm just one person. It helps millions of veterans that go through the same thing that I went through. Millions of veterans. The good news is Project 2025 doesn't want to get rid of the VA. They just want to steal all the money. Right? Like everything else, it's a $300 billion organization. They don't want to get rid of it. They're going to take it. They don't think that you deserve it. They don't think veterans deserve health care. And they say it more than once. They want to politicize the VA. Imagine going to your hospital and they choose your care based on your politics. Project 2025 says that. They want to provide conservative value care. So they already 86 abortions, 86 trans care, that's just already. They flu vaccines, that's not service-connected. Vaccines aren't conservative medicine. They're going to get rid of it. Yeah, it's silly. We laugh, it's silly, but they're going to do it. And they've got 4 years to do it. So the first thing they're going to do is politicize the VA. They are going to install loyal leadership. Again, it says this in Project 2025. Put loyalists in charge of the VA. They're going to privatize it. Okay? They're going to merge VA hospitals with failing hospitals, failing private hospitals. So they're going to take the VA money and use that to pay for broken hospitals. It's unconscionable. Like, I don't even know what else to say. It's kind of a joke. If it weren't so true, it would be funny. But Donald Trump really put people in charge of the VA that are going to dismantle it. They don't care. They're veterans, but I was a military policeman. You know what that means to me? Just the fact that the military police corps exists tells me that they're bad soldiers. And that means that they're bad veterans. The author of this chapter, it's 20 pages. If you're a veteran, read it. It's page 641. 10 pages, you can read it. The author is a lieutenant colonel and an investment banker, and he was part of the Trump transition team in 2016. He knows how to take the VA apart, brick by brick. And they have a plan to take it apart, brick by brick. And when they do, what's going to happen to the veterans? The same thing that happened before the VA. They're going to come back from war, and they're going to get dumped on you guys. Broken and damaged and insane. They're going to get dumped on you guys. All right, we're going to have to deal with it. Because there's not going to be a public health option. There's not going to be the VA. There's not going to be enough doctors or dentists or anything in the next couple of years. We're going to have a brain drain. I'm not going to say everybody's going to leave the country, but doctors are going to go where they can be doctors. And we're not going to have much left out. The veterans are going to have even less. Sorry, I wish I had better news. That was kind of a bummer. I'm sorry. It really is. I'm sorry, guys. But it really is what everybody needs to hear. What can we do about it? You can call your representative. You can call Scott Perry. He's a maybe he's a call McCormick. No, he's not. Get a hold of him in Delaware or Connecticut or wherever McCormick's from. You can call Fetterman, but he's in Israel right now, I think. So, what can we do? Look out for your fellow veterans. If you know them, like, keep an eye on them, man. Like, they may not be hurting right now. They may not know that they're hurting, but keep an eye on them. Like, you are their brothers and sisters, moms, aunts, and dads, and uncles. Like, you know your veterans better than anybody. So keep an eye on them, and if they need help, tell them to get it right now while they still can.
All right.
I'm going to tell you that you've seen me sort of talk off the cuff most of the time when you've seen me talk. And I'm going to work off of notes today because, again, 5 minutes, I have a lot of important stuff to say, and a lot of it isn't very good. And I appreciate following both Justin and Will because I do have a lot of bad news that I have to offer you as the person here tasked to give you the effects of the Trump administration's policies currently on agriculture in Pennsylvania. This is actually a report from myself and Crystal Margot Bemmons, who's here. A lot of you have been following her on Facebook, being very supportive. You can share for her. Everybody's here. Now listen, it's half or more her report, because what you might not know is for the past 2 or 3 years, Crystal's full-time job has been helping farmers in Pennsylvania to utilize the H-2A migrant worker farming program. She, if you didn't know, what she does before you saw her standing up in front of audiences like this is she was a former AFSCME state worker and somebody who had a career longer than I'm going to call her out on in training large groups of people towards a common mission. And she founded her own workforce development firm in 2017, and a few years ago was contracted with the Department of Labor and Industry. And now, if you don't know what the H-2A migrant worker farm program is, it is the only way that legal workers come here to do any farming in Pennsylvania. It is the only way of legalizing your workforce. In 2016, 900 workers in the state of Pennsylvania came here on the H-2A migrant worker program. Last year there were more than 5,000. You see how quickly these farmers are trying to make sure that their workforce is above board. But I'm going to tell you, we visited farms all across the state, and I can assure you, everybody was trying to legalize, so to speak, right, as fast as you could. Now, Crystal is not working that contract anymore, and I'm not going to say that no one is. We suspect no one is, but what I do think we can feel certain of is that nobody's going to be trying as hard even as we did last year to bring people here in the only way that would actually protect them and protect our farmers in Pennsylvania. I'm sorry, it's bad news, but I'm going to keep moving off my notes because we'll get to good stuff. So listen, and this is not, so I want to look at the way, we're talking about way things have been dismantled, and I really appreciate following Justin. I actually we seem like an unlikely pair to be speaking on behalf of agriculture, but you heard how Crystal got here. I actually come into this as a nonprofit urban farmer in the city of York, as a former carpenter and home improvement contractor in Pennsylvania, and I began working with nonprofits and a state agency in Pennsylvania in 2016, where we invested Medicaid money into upgrading people's homes for accessibility, for wheelchair ramps or for bathrooms, so that folks could stay in their home through retirement or disability. The hundreds of people that I worked with in state agencies, state workers, and nonprofit workers kept thousands of people in their homes, right, through retirement or disability, but we also saved hundreds of millions of dollars. Why? Because we all know it costs more money when folks move into nursing homes. So either it's $10,000 once for a bathroom or a wheelchair ramp, or $10,000 every month when those folks have to go into a nursing home. So when we say they're going to dismantle things, that's how they dismantle things. And then the state movement that represents the Trump movement that we know existed in our state legislature 4 years ago, when some of us ran for state house for the very first time in this room, you know, those folks, they shut down that program and they privatized it so that they laid off the state agency and everything is done by insurance companies. So now nobody gets anything, everybody moves into a nursing home, and you have a rapidly broken Medicaid system. That was just my little part of it. A guy was building wheelchair ramps, but that's how it works from the inside. Now here's the good stuff. Because now I got this nonprofit urban farm in the city of York that is actually fantastic, and we are going to make sure that we do everything we can to save it. Now, right now is a tough time for Pennsylvania agriculture. Everybody I know, not just in our industry, this past week gave their employees their ICE will be here sort of speech, which is what happens. And so we're approaching it, I'm going to tell you how we're approaching it to save the farm. And I think that some of these principles here, because we don't know what they'll do to the state. I can tell you that this is the only state where farmers have not suffered their privatization story. You know, farmers in California, farmers in the Midwest, they know what it's like to lose the farm. So what are we doing in our tiny little place? We're strengthening our relationship with the organizations and the places that are doing the same mission-driven work that we are. So for us, that's school districts, that's food pantries, you know, because our farm actually feeds a lot of folks in a food district, that's mission, and we want to make those bonds stronger. I'm calling that mutual aid. That's good old-fashioned mutual aid is what we're talking about there. So the way that I'm doing it is building those bonds between organizations, but I think there's a place for each of you to think about where mutual aid fits into what you do moving forward. You know what else I'm doing? I'm making sure that I have relationships with the good people in the organizations that are bound to win when these policies are enacted, right? Large corporations will make more money. More of us will go to work for them. That is just what is going to happen. It's already starting to happen. We need to find those good people in those organizations, and we need to make sure that we're still working with them, whether that's for the organizational support that a lot of nonprofits and places like ours are going to need, but I call that generally solidarity, right? That is finding the people that are going to make this like movement happen, no matter where they are. And on solidarity, I'm going to point out, there's about maybe 300 people here, let's say. That's about what I pictured. So, if we go in to the next 4 years without this, we are done for. That is a fact. And so, when you go home and you think about mutual aid, solidarity, think of it like, I told Crystal, it's like a George Bailey moment. We can't afford any of you not to be there. If you don't know George Bailey, right, he goes and he gets to see his life. If he wasn't in it, he thinks he's insignificant, but it goes to hell without him. The whole town goes to hell. The whole town goes to hell, literally without Joyce Vandersloot, without Tom Henchey, without Rich Haskey. The whole town goes to hell without each and every one of you. So we're going to think about mutual aid, we're going to think about solidarity, and we're going to talk about elections. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it's not about feeling good when our message overtakes theirs. Not for me. That's not what it's about. For me, it's about structural protection from the hellfire that is literally coming in the form of all structures above us. Whatever they get, they got the federal government, they get the state government. We need York City, we need the school boards, we need all these places. Because if you've noticed, our opponents will tell you what, government doesn't matter, doesn't do anything, but then they still take it, right? They're like, don't worry, we'll just take this. Everything they're doing is happening through the structure of government. So I want us to think about solidarity, mutual aid, elections coming up so that we have structural protection, and just on how damn important each and every one of you is. This is not a lot, but it's enough. Thanks, y'all.
Councilwoman Sarah Edgerton from Hagir Borough, second term, right? And has run for office again, and I understand, I think you're running again. She's running again, and she's going to win this time.
Yes. I love that I was just called dumb, so thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Social Security. Project 2025 has a reduction. And how are they going to reduce? Well, they want to increase our retirement age. Now, for many of us, we think, okay, Americans are living longer, right? Is that a real big deal? Well, it is. Because people who depend on Social Security, 90% of people over the age of 65 depend on that for at least 50% of their income. 50%. 13 to 15% of people, that is 90% of their income. So when you talk about the most vulnerable people having to wait another 2 to 3 years to retire, who are already struggling every day to pay their bills, to make decisions on their medical care, to make decisions if they're going to be able to travel and see family, be able to put gas in their car to get to places that they need to go. This is a huge attack. You're attacking the people, and you've heard from all of our speakers that who they are targeting are people that lack education, people that lack resources for health care, people that lack resources to get food on the table. They don't care about the working class. The Trump administration is systematically targeting all of our hardworking people, and I happen to be one of them. I've been a social worker for over 20 years, and I can tell you, I can testify how difficult it is to manage the Social Security system, how difficult it is for someone to get disability. There's a funny saying, well, you're going to get denied on your first application. So how many times do people need extra support to be able to get through their application? A lot. Because they don't make it easy. They don't want to make it easy. And in fact, they want to make it more complicated. Do you know why they want to make it more complicated?
Denied benefits.
You give up, and people don't get it. And then look, they're paying out a lot less in Social Security. And those people who depend on it, it's a life or death situation. It is a situation where people become unhoused. It is a situation where people are struggling to take care of themselves, to get medication, to make sure that they have preventative health care. This is an attack on the poor. So What else are they trying to do? Well, guess what? Now the federal government is calling our Social Security system a Ponzi scheme. How many of you have paid into Social Security? And I was just at brunch yesterday talking to a gentleman. He's a veteran. He's been pretty down on his luck through his years. He struggled with addiction. He's struggling right now with being unhoused. And he also is a Trumper. So I know, right, we all have to take a breath because we all have people in our lives that we like that they have voted against themselves. And so I offer this challenge. So every time I've spoken since the disaster of this election, I've said we have to welcome them back. We have to listen to them and we have to educate them. And so what he said to me yesterday is, hey Sarah, I'm up in age. I don't make a lot of money. He works for a thrift store. He's in the back sorting through clothes. And he said, I know I'm not going to live much longer. And I am so sick of wondering if I'm going to pay my rent, if I'm going to have enough food on my table, if I'm going to be able to have gas to get to my doctor. Should I just go ahead and start collecting early? And I said, whoa. Let me tell you about the cuts to Social Security. They're talking about cutting by 30%. So what that means is about $100,000 that some individuals are going to lose over their lifetime. So I said, well, as you get closer to your birthday, let's talk about this. But what we really need to do is to be able to educate folks because I don't think they really understand the impact of what the Trump administration and his cronies are doing to our system. Because it's not just Social Security. You've heard Medicaid, education. They are attacking and people still do not understand. So we have to be willing to talk to them, even people that make us so angry. And we have to say, this is what you voted for. The only way that we're going to stand up and change things is we have to get fucking mad. And if we have to leave this room, and every day we need to go out there and stand up, we need to yell, we need to have signs, we need to organize. It is not enough to just sit in this room, and I know many of you are not just sitting in this room, but we all have very different and common goals in mind. And so we can only do this with grassroots organizations. We have to get out there, and we can't get tired, because that's what they want us to do. They want us to give up. They want us to stop fighting. They want us to get so down on our luck that we're just like, well, this is where we're at. But we know that a mistake was made by maybe some of our friends, family, neighbors, and we have to change them. So when we leave here today, we're going to have a lot of great ideas. And you have to support each other. Because, darn it, my child is 19 years old, and if she's not able to marry the person that she wants to, or she can't make a choice with her body, or she can't afford health care. Because every day she says to me, Mom, I don't know what the point of buying a house is. And I can't imagine having that despair. So this isn't for us. This is for our children, our grandchildren, because we have to change this world. So let's get something out.
Why does messaging matter? Republicans are better at telling lies than Democrats are at telling the truth. We have to up our game. We do that by taking command of how we talk about issues and having the conversation on our terms. In the struggles ahead, here are some themes and words that I think are critical to successful messaging for all of the battles we are fighting. Message 1, all Republicans are to blame, not just Trump and Musk. Since Republican leaders only listen to other Republicans, the sooner all Republicans feel responsible for what their leadership does, the sooner they will pressure their leaders to cut the crap. Blaming Trump and Musk lets every other Republican, including our Republican neighbors, off the hook. Make every Republican responsible for all Republicans. Yes, your neighbor is responsible for what Mike Johnson does. Johnson does it in the name of the party she belongs to. Relentlessly blaming all Republicans puts them on the defensive. It forces their rank and file to question their allegiance. Every so-called reasonable Republican should be so ashamed, humiliated, and embarrassed that they stop lending their good name to the worst political party ever to gain power in America. The goal is not to persuade the Republican Party to be what it was before Nixon, Ford, Reagan, Bush, and Trump. That's a fantasy. The goal is to kill the Republican Party and throw its stinking carcass into the cauldron of an active volcano. That's fantasy too, but it's actually one that's far easier to achieve. Message 2, personal security. Personal security is an umbrella term that brings together the different ways people are struggling today. It recognizes how much today's social insecurity strains almost every part of our lives. Millions of people are asking, what if the worst happens? What if I lose my job? Should I start going to the food pantry? What if we lose our rural hospital? What if they really do cut my Social Security? Should I be in that part of town after dark? How much more will I have to pay for my health care? When will my 401k be strong enough that I can think about retiring again? What if I lose my children's daycare? What if Granny's nursing home closes without Medicaid? No one voted for all this anxiety. They voted for promises that their lives would be easier and happier, promises of personal security. Our side needs to own personal security and all it represents. Message 3, the Constitution trumps socialism. When working people ask their government for quality services that improve their lives, Republicans shriek, socialism! We can stop it by claiming ownership of the Constitution. The preamble of the Constitution lays out the core functions of government, including to, quote, promote the general welfare, unquote. So an agenda that promotes the general welfare is not socialism at all. It's in the Constitution. Have fun with this. Challenge Republicans to explain how Washington, Jefferson, Adams, Madison, Hamilton, Monroe, Franklin, and the rest were socialists. Issue by issue, Democrats can point to a problem and ask Republicans, how does it promote the general welfare when 11 million children live in poverty, to use just one example? Carry a copy of the Constitution with you and show it to everyone when you talk about the need for government programs and services. It's not socialism. It's promoting the general welfare just as the founders told us to do. Message 4, judges are law enforcement and we support law enforcement. The constitutional crisis between the president and the courts is happening right now. Republicans are openly and smugly defying judges who insist that the president obey the law. If the president wins, American democracy probably can't survive. Courts are how we make sure that everyone is treated fairly. They decide what the law means and how it affects our lives. But Republicans convict without a trial, they jail without a lawyer, and they threaten to impeach any judge who says this is not okay. Only judges have the power and the duty to pass judgment on what Republicans are doing. Now it's up to the courts to enforce our laws because the president considers himself above the law. The courts are our last line of defense. We must support them. This week, organize a lunch hour rally at your courthouse to show our local judges that we support them and count on them to uphold the rule of law. Judges are law enforcement, and we support law enforcement.